Thank you very much. Thank you to that table very much over there. I appreciate that. No. I want to say that all of you out there work tirelessly every day to build appreciation for the impact that the arts play in your communities. You work to engage decision makers, members of the public, artists, funders, and so many others in creating better places to live, work, and play through the arts. So today's town hall that we have here is all about that, the role that the arts play in engaging your community. And here to start us off is our program's moderator, Mario Garcia Durham. Now let me say a word about Mario before he gets the huge round of applause that he deserves. And that is that Mario is president and CEO of APAP, the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, working to strengthen the network of presenters like those in your communities and many of you yourselves. He worked with many of you when he led the presenting program at the National Endowment for the Arts. I want to say that I find Mario to be a consummate collaborator, one of the really great networker and leaders in the National Arts Service organizations that pulls us together, very generous with his time, and makes collaboration happen. And APAP is an organization that I have attended their conference since 1977. And so I greatly appreciate the organization, greatly appreciate all that they do, and greatly appreciate Mario. So Mario Garcia Durham.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And oh, good. That is a great table over there. Thanks, Bob. It is really great to be here today. And I need to find out from y'all. So the whole purpose of your food was to get you energy, because this next session is about participation. The town hall, as you know, format only works if we have a lot of engagement from all of you. So that's my main role here today. But the key to all of our success is how we engage others in collaborating, participating, giving, and most importantly, taking action. And our panelists have a lot of ideas and experience to share. So this is how this session will work. We will begin with a brief contextual presentation by Bill Strickland, the master in engaging communities. We will then hear from our panelists and move into questions they have for each other. And again, most importantly, we need for all of you, as you're hearing their presentations, to start thinking about this critical issue of engaging communities. So start thinking about the questions. We'll have, we have set microphones out, and my job will be to enlist you. If you're not participating, I will be out in the audience to tap you on the shoulder, so I'm just kind of letting you know. I also want to do a sidebar here. I love Bob and his team. They are very organized here. And Mara Walker, can I have a round of applause for Mara Walker, who's fantastic. But I mean, I've done a lot of these presentations, but every single thing I've said so far has been scripted. I wanted to liven things up by popping out of this in a French maid outfit, but they had none of it. They're so serious, so I just wanted to let you know. But before we start, I wanted to let you know that this issue of community is so critically important. I started many years ago in San Francisco at the Yerba Buena Center, had a wonderful tenure at the National Endowment for the Arts, and now have the honor of leading the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. And the issue of community and its importance, it is an issue many of us have dealt with for so many years. It's a constant topic, and the reason it's a constant topic is because it is never solved. But for the arts community, I think connecting with communities, truly engaging with communities, is the greatest strength and challenge that we have. So before we begin the panel, I have the great pleasure to introduce Bill Strickland. Bill is the president and CEO of Manchester Bidwell Corporation and its subsidiaries, Manchester Craftsman Guild and Bidwell Training Center. He is nationally recognized as a visionary leader who authentically delivers education and cultural opportunities to students and adults within an organizational structure that fosters innovation, creativity, responsibility, and integrity. Throughout his distinguished career, he has been honored with numerous prestigious awards, including the coveted MacArthur Genius Award. Today, Manchester Bidwell Corporation has evolved into a national model for education, culture, and hope. Their youth and arts and jazz programs are successful anchors to Pittsburgh's cultural and community life. The center offers accredited associate's degree and diploma programs in fields as varied as culinary arts, chemical laboratory technologies, health careers, horticulture, and office technology. Manchester Bidwell Corporation is a business model that works. The model works so well that Bill is replicating the Manchester Bidwell enterprise throughout the country. I'm going to close this introduction with a quote from Bill himself. If this country has a future, it's because of the ability to form visions and partnerships. I believe that we can change the United States of America in my lifetime. We've got to change the way this country sees itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bill Strickland.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. I've been given a very short period of time to tell you my life story, so it'll be brief, and more importantly, it's pictures. I think we're at the point now where we need to have more pictures. We've got the speeches, libraries full of them, but we've got to get pictures, because the pictures really tell the story. So I'm going to show you some pictures of what I do for a living. But before I do that, it's very important that you understand, before I got all these wonderful awards and so forth, I was actually a public school kid flunking out of school here in Pittsburgh. And it was actually an art teacher that saved my life. His name was Frank Ross. I was academically very challenged. The guy was a ceramic artist. He got me excited about clay. I got pretty good at it. I got so good at it, I started cutting all the classes in high school. But I had enough street sense to give the teachers whose classes I was cutting the pottery I made, and they gave me passing grades, and that's how I got out of the place. And Frank says, "You're too smart to die, you're going to college." And Mr. Ross hounded me during my senior year. I filled out a college application in pencil, literally, put it in an envelope, sent to the University of Pittsburgh. I got this letter back, says you got to pass the Scholastic Aptitude test, never seen the test, flunked the test, to get in as a probationary student to Pitt. Well, I graduated with honors, now I'm a trustee at a place. And I was the commencement speaker. I got up in front of 13,000 people and said, "Don't give up on the poor kids. They might end up being the commencement speaker." And that story is what I'm going to talk about for 12 minutes. People are born into the world as assets, not liabilities. It's all in the way that you treat people that drives behavior. And so I built this center based on my experiences with Frank Ross. Mrs. Corbett knows this story because she came and spent an afternoon with us recently. And the good news about Mrs. Corbett is she gets it not just here, she gets it inside. So what I'm going to talk about for a few minutes is what Bob Lynch and some of these other folks know about, because we grew up together, literally. And so I've been doing this pretty much my whole adult life. But anyway, I built this center. It's 10 minutes from here. You got to come see it. It's vocational education for people everybody's given up on, welfare moms, single parents, homeless folks. And the arts program is a partnership with the public school system. I work with all the kids who are at risk, who are dropping out at the rate of 50%. We graduated 97% of the kids last year. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with the kids. So we doubled the graduation rate for inner city kids in 36 months. That's the headline. The arts can actually transform performance in education big time. So I built this center because I'm a big believer in the environment. That's our center. This is my concept of what a training center for poor people is supposed to look like. It's in the middle of the inner city. It is deliberately like that because the worst part of being about poor, what it does to your spirit. Poor people never have a nice day. They don't know that the sun comes up in the morning because they stop looking at it. So if you want to cure this cancer, you have to look like the solution and not the problem. So this is my version of what a school's supposed to look like for people who've given up on hope. That's the entrance to the building. I'm a believer in the arts, obviously. We have $150,000 artwork appraised value, no anti-theft system on the artwork. In the toughest neighborhood in Pittsburgh, probably with the highest crime rate, not one act of vandalism in 26 years in a tough inner city neighborhood. There's no anti-theft system on this artwork. We haven't lost a screwdriver in 26 years because environment drives behavior. That's at Christmas time. Reminds you of your high school, correct? This is what the kids see during the holiday season. Why? Because beauty cures cancer of the spirit. That's why. And this is what people are supposed to see every day. We built, I promote Heinz ketchup wherever I go in the world, which I hope you all eat. Senator Heinz was a good friend. I had a cardboard box in my building, and I had it in a garbage bag, and I'm dragging this bag over Pittsburgh, and I got called into the office of United States Senator John Heinz, which was like going to see the Wizard of Oz, because he had about $600 million at the time, and I had about 60 cents. He said, boy, you're doing a great job with the ex-steel workers and the welfare moms. We understand you want to build a new school. I said, yeah. He said, well, you could really help the Heinz Company's affirmative action goals out if you'd add a culinary program, new school when you get it built, and then we could hire some black folks and solve the problem. We were a building trades program back then, but I said, Senator, give me the money, we'll build the school. I'll come back in a couple of years and we'll get that culinary program going just like you asked. He said, well, what would your answer be if I said I'd give you $1 million? I said, Senator, it appears that we're going into the food trading business. And and John did give us $1 million, but as importantly, he loaned us the head of research for the Heinz Company. We built a gourmet kitchen for welfare moms in this $1 million kitchen. We lost John to a plane accident, but you'll feel his spirit at the front door of that building when you come to visit. That we built an amphitheater for the students. Now, that's lunch at the school, by the way. We've discovered it's very difficult to teach people when they're hungry. So the answer is give them something to eat. But we don't do fast food, we do gourmet food. So every child that comes to this school every day has a gourmet lunch. Good for their stomachs and better for their heads. I wanted to take the stigma out of food. Good food's for everybody on the planet, not just rich kids. This is our pharmaceutical program. We take people with no background in science and have them doing pharmaceutical applications in 10 months flat, working for all the pharmaceutical companies around the region. That's one of our guys. He's now working for the Water Treatment Authority. He was on unemployment a year ago. He's making $50,000 a year. This is the arts program, Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, 1968, during the riots. I work with 500 kids from the Pittsburgh Public Schools, grade 8 through 12. Last year we graduated 97% of the kids, and I've averaged over 90% for 20 years in a row with the kids who are dropping out at the rate of 50%. Now you can't make that up. That's reality. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with these children. That's the point. The arts is part of the solution to the cancer of the spirit that the kids have. If you can get the kids engaged in art, it opens up the hemisphere in the brain where the human imagination lies. If you unlock the imagination, you unlock learning. That's why I won the MacArthur Genius Award, because I figured out the cure for spiritual cancer. It's sunlight, and it's food, and it's art, and it's flowers, and enthusiasm, and it's hope. You put that together, you can cure cancer, and I don't care what community it is. This is the work the kids are doing. The goal is not to train artists. The goal is to use the arts as a strategy to recover the children. You can't teach them algebra if they don't want to live. The first thing you got to do is to get them to stay on the planet. And the arts does it because it appeals to the hemisphere where the imagination lies. Look at this young man's face. This is a child that's learning something in an arts program after school in the middle of a tough inner city neighborhood. That's another one of our guys. This kid who took that picture is now working for Walt Disney Studios. That's our gallery. This is the student show catered by our culinary program. So we have smoked salmon at the art openings, and I even got their parents coming. 20 years we couldn't buy a parent. We'd have the shows. Now the parents would show up, the kids would tear up, and I got tired of looking at these kids crying. So one of my buddies got off into saving souls for Jesus, you know, dragging guys out of bars with a Bible. I said, I want you to come work for me. You got to tone down the Jesus stuff a little bit, but keep the enthusiasm, man. I can't get the parents to come. He said, I'll get them to come. So he took the keys to the van and went to Miss Jones's house. And Miss Jones, I knew you wanted to come to your kid's art opening, but you probably didn't have a ride. So I came to give you a ride. Well, we got 20 parents and 30 parents. The last show, 300 parents, and we didn't pick up one parent. Why? Because now it's not cool not to show up and support your kids at the Manchester Craftsman's Guild. So we solved that problem. The lady on the left is the instructor. The person on the right is the student. We're developing a new concept of education. It's called Love the Kids. That is a digital imaging center. We're working with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that's going to adopt us to do a demonstration digital imaging program for the United States of America using the strategy that we've developed with these kids in the inner city of Pittsburgh, 10 minutes from where you're sitting right now. Oh, I also built a music hall while I was at it. And I'm very glad I did because a trumpet player named Dizzy Gillespie showed up. And I said, why would you come to a black school that don't even have a reputation in music? He said, Billy Taylor told me a black guy built it, and I didn't believe and wanted to see for myself. And you're too young to appreciate what you built, but you ought to build one of these centers in every city in this country, and I'm going to help you do it. So he allowed us to record his concert. He gave us the rights to the music. And then Herbie Hancock showed up, and Marion McPartland, and Shirley Horn, and Betty Carter, and Dakota Staten, and the Count Basie Orchestra, and Sergio Mendez, and Joe Williams, and Stanley Turrentine. 600 recordings later, the most important collection of contemporary jazz recordings in the world is in my center in Pittsburgh, and we won something called a Grammy Award 5 times. These are children. As I was telling Mrs. Corbett, these are kids from the public school system. We bring them over for a jazz experience called School of Swing. Look at their faces. This is the way that children are supposed to look when they go to school every day. That's the point. If the children are looking like that, you can teach them something. And so we've got that problem figured out. There's Dizzy, just in case you thought I was lying. He was there. Those are the 5 Grammys that we won. And this is the economic development part of the story. I had another box built, it hit streets, and I built that. It's a medical technology building. And there's the fountain in the courtyard. And University of Pittsburgh Medical Center is one of our partners. And I also built a greenhouse. And the greenhouse is, we have a horticultural program to train poor folks how to grow orchids. And we sell the orchids in the grocery stores and generate money to support the center. And at one of the graduations, one of the women came up to me and said, God bless you for saving my life. I said, how did I save your life? She said, I enrolled in the horticultural program, and when I went to Canada on a field trip, the customs agent called me ma'am for the first time in my memory. I got my dignity back. God bless you. Well, she's now working in the industry, and she's doing fine. Those orchids. We took first and second prize in the Orchid Symposium, and the Orchid Symposium now meets at our place in the middle of the inner city. We're doing hydrangeas, and now I'm down to the end of the story. I was out there at the Silicon Valley a couple years ago. Evan Fraser knows this story. And I was out there with my little slideshow, for real. For those of you who know me, I actually did have slides in a box with duct tape on the corner and a slide projector. And I showed up at the Silicon Valley, and these people looked at me like I was from Pluto, man. That's cool. I blew off the dust, plugged in my little slide projector. The guy came out of the audience, he said, man, what a presentation. My only criticism, your computers are getting a little bit old. Well, they all looked about the same to me. I said, well, what do you do for a living? He said, oh, I help build a company called Hewlett-Packard. I said, well, there's an instantaneous solution to this problem. The long and short of it is we got $750,000 from HP. And we built one of the hippest digital imaging centers in the world. And it led me to a guy named Jeff Skull, because he was sitting there that day. And he came up to me and said, great story, man. I said, well, what are you into, man? He said, oh, I built a company called eBay. I said, oh, that's cool. You got a card? I ain't the techie guy. I didn't know what eBay was. So I came back to Pittsburgh and asked one of the little techie kids, I said, man, have you ever heard of something called eBay? He said, yeah, that's the electronic commerce network with Mr. Strickland. I said, holy smokes, man, I met the guy that built the company. So I called him up. I said, Mr. Skull, I've come to have a much deeper appreciation of who you are, man. He said, I thought you'd figure it out sooner or later. Here's $500,000. I said, what's that for? He says, your first replication. Dizzy was right. You can scale this. I think you're eBay on the social side. We now have 6 centers open and operating. It's not a franchise. We don't own the centers. I don't want to own the centers. What I want to do is get them built. And the strategy is to become a part of each community's solution to the problem. So that the new concept is called cooperation. Why? Because there are enough poor people to go around for everybody. Nobody's got a lock on the market. And we've built 6 centers so far. This is Jeff Skull and Billy Wong and the kids doing digital imaging in San Francisco. Graduated 95% of the kids from the high school program. These are children who are now winners, not losers, because of a video technology program in Bayview Hunters Point in San Francisco. This is the one in Cincinnati. My friend from Cincinnati sitting right there. 94% of the kids graduated from the Cincinnati public school system within 24 months of the enrollment in the program. And I don't live in Cincinnati. I live in Pittsburgh. It's the value proposition. That's the Digital Imaging Center. This is the one we built in Grand Rapids with a company called Steelcase, the furniture business. Every center that we build is designed by Steelcase, and they give us a 60% discount on the furniture because every space is elegant or we won't build it. That's what we built for the poor kids. Those are photographs of Dr. King taken during the last 2 years of his life, and they were seen by Mrs. King and approved of. This is our concept of how to treat children. That's the dining facility for the kids. And these are some of the kids. We cut the dropout rate in Grand Rapids to 5%. And one of the ways that we now know that the program is taking effect on the kids, they start pulling their pants up. And when they put a belt on, I know I got them. This is the one we just opened up in Cleveland a couple years ago. It's right on Euclid Avenue. Graduated 90% of the kids. And we're training folks for the Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital. Those kids. We saw kids get off the bus for the first time. They walked away from the building because they thought they got off at the wrong stop. They couldn't conceive that something this beautiful was for them. That's how upside down this conversation has gotten, folks. This has got to stop. That's enough. This is recording technology. This is the one we just opened up in New Haven. Looks exactly like that slide. It has a waiting list. They've been open 12 months. University Hospital, Yale University, New Haven Community Foundation, public school system. Done deal. This is the one we're going to open up in Boston in October. Deval Patrick, the governor, is very interested in seeing if we could replicate this throughout Massachusetts. So Boston and Buffalo are already funded. They'll open up in October. So that's now 8 centers that are open and operating. Pittsburgh's 9. Atlanta, Chicago, Sharon, PA, Austin, Richmond, and U.S. Virgin Islands are all cities that are in motion. I'd say we're going to build at least 5 of those by 2014. And these are cities we're now talking to, and I'm not looking for work. These are 60 cities. So the goal is to build 200 centers, 100 in the U.S. and 100 around the world, in partnership with everybody sitting in this room. And now I'm down to the end of this show, and there are 2 other cities, Vancouver and Northern Israel. We just had our team come back from Israel. We have Jews and Arabs meeting to build a center for the kids today. For real. We're trying to get a bill passed in Congress. It's been authorized in the Senate, authorized in the House. The idea would be it would provide operating support for these centers. And the idea, guys, is we want to work as partners with you, particularly guys like you who really understand this industry and understand this strategy. If we can work together, we can solve the problem. So here's what I want to leave you with. I believe that Americans for the Arts and everybody sitting in this room can solve the problem of American public education. I think we're the secret sauce and the missing ingredient. I think if we can get everybody organized and focused, we're the cure for the cancer. See, I'm getting 90% graduation rates in 7 U.S. cities, and I don't live in any of those cities. So either I'm the luckiest guy in the world, or there's something about this strategy. And let me also tell you something I really want to share with you, and I'll get off stage. I know that this work is very hard for you. And I know how difficult it is for you. I've grown up with you. And I know that it's so disappointing because you can't get the funding. You know what you're doing, nobody will listen to you. And from time to time, it must be very discouraging. But I want to reinforce the fact that there's nothing wrong with you guys. You just happen to be possessed with a high degree of sensibility for human suffering, which means from time to time you must be experiencing some pain. But you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. There's a lot right with you. And I believe that your sensibility and your determination to do the right thing could solve the problems of this nation. In fact, I believe it so much I'm prepared to bet my life on the fact that I'm right. So I would like to offer a enthusiastic God bless you for the wonderful people that you are. Thank you. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our other panelists, starting with Molly Smith, the Artistic Director of Arena Stage. Molly. Next, we have Edgar Smith, the CEO of Worldpac Paper. Edgar, please join us on the stage. And finally, Danielle Brazelle, the Executive Director for Arts for LA. Danielle. As Bill so incredibly demonstrated, engaging with community is what we're all about and should be. And I want to start by asking you to think about this question before we go into the presentations. What does an engaged community mean to you? I think, especially with most of you here in your work and your agencies, you're on the front line with this very difficult work. So I'm going to ask you to think about that question, because after we have the presentations, we're going to open up the dialogue with you all. So at this point, I would like to ask Molly Smith to please join us at the podium. Thank you.
I just have to say, I am completely blown away by you. This is going to be a hard speech to do. I read the other day that a winner is just a loser who tries one more time. And I think it has such amazing resonance for us in the arts, doesn't it? That we try and try and try, and we feel like we're never going to make it, and then at some point we do. So I've been thinking a lot about what does it mean to create an energized, engaged community, and how are we each entangled in our own communities. I come from a pretty unusual background. I started a theater company in Juneau, Alaska, Perseverance Theater, that was of, by, and about Alaskans. And I see some Alaskans over here. We did tons of cross-cultural work with the people of Alaska, the Tlingit people, the Haida people, the Athabascan people, the Filipino people, the Inupiats, way, way up north. And I was there for 19 years. It was really a powerful community and state to do the theater in. It's actually only about a fifth of the size of the United States. It's a huge state with a very tiny population. And it was in Alaska that I began learning how to work with various communities. When I moved to Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., Arena has a big history as one of the first theaters who pioneered the not-for-profit theater movement over 60 years ago. So there were 3 intrepid women in different parts of the country who did this. We are now 1,900 theaters strong. So that is a movement that ended up being a revolution that was won. We are all over the country now in response to doing brilliant work in all of our own communities. When I came to Arena Stage, we moved the theater into a focus on American work and American artists through transforming lives. There's many firsts for Arena Stage over 63 years. First theater to travel behind the Iron Curtain. First to create an endowment. First theater to integrate in Washington, D.C. When I came to D.C. 15 years ago, some of the work on stage at Arena was of people of color, but our audiences were predominantly white. I'd been a student in Washington, D.C. in the 70s, and here we were in 1998, and what I did is I walked the streets of Washington, D.C. to get a feel for what the city was. I visited a lot of the African American Baptist churches, and I discovered something really important. Other than the powerful speeches that were being done in the churches, the relationships that were happening there, what I saw was something really tiny that we took into Arena Stage, which is there were people outside the theaters welcoming people, outside of the churches, welcoming people into the churches to break down any feeling of being uncomfortable about going to church. So what we did at Arena Stage is we shifted that so that our ushers, because theaters can often feel elite to people, were outside of the theaters, shaking hands with people, welcoming them through the theaters to allow people to feel comfortable and to recognize that this theater was their home as well. Now, it also obviously has to do with having really consistent programming for African American communities, because our goal at Arena Stage is to actually reflect the community that we live in. And now more than 25% of our audiences are people of color, and that's something I'm really proud of. So I'm starting with Oklahoma. You can see this great image. Oklahoma opened our new center 2.5 years ago with this production. So I come from the West. I've got kind of frontier energy about the way in which I drive. And this production was about the crazy bootstrap energy it took to open the new center as well. Oklahoma in the 1900s was diverse, but very separate. Native American communities, black communities, white communities, Asian communities, because of the great land rush in 1889. Now, we made the production modern by crossing the cultures to, again, reflect the community that we live in Washington, D.C. So you can see this is Laurie and Curly. You probably have never seen a production with a Laurie and Curly like that, right? And absolutely fantastic. If our work as artists is to hold a big mirror up to our community so it reflects back to them through our work on stage, then casting is a big part of it. So that gives you a picture of the show. My Fair Lady. I always cast through families. As Eliza is Asian, her father is too. I don't believe anymore in colorblind casting because we see color. Rather than confusing the audience, I do it through family systems. This production of My Fair Lady was also about class distinction. In America 10 years ago, most people would have said there are no class systems. Now with Occupy Wall Street and the 1%, we have a heightened view that we have a heavy class system. And this production focused on clearly defined lower, middle, and upper class through movement, dance, and of course, language. Now, these two productions brought in specific diverse communities, and I cannot tell you how thrilling it was to have big groups of Asian teenagers cheering on Eliza and her father in My Fair Lady. Another way we do this is through partnerships. We're working on a collaboration between theaters, universities, and cities on the Civil War project, ignited by Liz Lerman. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Boston, and Atlanta are creating theater, dance, and music pieces about the American Civil War and civil wars around the globe to investigate the Civil War during the 150th anniversary. This is about driving programming through the heart of the university, through conferences, programming in many departments for students, artists, and communities. What you see here is Mary T. and Lizzie K. by Tazewell Thompson, which is about Mary Tyrone Lincoln and Elizabeth Keckley. Elizabeth Keckley was her seamstress. She was probably the finest designer working in America at that time. She was African-American freed slave. The way in which we work in partnerships, I just want to give you a few more examples. We did a production called Red. You probably know it. It's about Mark Rothko. So we ignited a relationship with the Phillips Collection so that their experts on Rothko could both bring audiences into arena and also intersect with the work that was going on stage. The National Gallery also brought in the original paintings from Four Seasons in New York to be shown during the duration of the production. I know many of you work on partnerships all across the country, and I will just say how profound I think it consistently is, because our work is in groups, right? Our work is always about groups. So if there's a way to bring people in an entirely different way within communities, there's real power there. Washington, D.C. has one of the best theater communities in the United States, one of the most vital ones, and this is the Kogod Cradle series. In our newest theater, it's community programming of our wonderful companies in the metropolitan area for workshopping of our great companies. New plays and devised work. Okay, this is just for fun. I mean, I love it because of what you talked about florists. During My Fair Lady, we have a floral competition with local florists who designed floral arrangements based on 15 plays and dresses. Advocacy. As an artist, I've always believed that my work has had an underpinning of social relevancy and politics, and this was tested when the Sandy Hook massacre happened. In 1 month, my partner Suzanne Bluestarboy and I, with the help of 24 Facebook friends and artists, social media rocks, developed a March on Washington for gun control, which brought 6,000 people marching in D.C. on January 26th. It received, thank you, national attention, 620 outlets, 100 Newtown families organized afterwards. It was created like a theater piece. And on this, it's when does the artist step out into advocacy? I did this as a private citizen, although I'm the artistic director of Arena Stage, but this act taught me more about citizenship than anything else in my life ever has. And it also moved me into greater activism than I could have imagined. Thank you.
Great. At this point, I would like to introduce Edgar Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure to see Bill Strickland speak on several occasions in different places, and as I was sitting listening to him today, I realized that that's who I want to be when I grow up. And boy, I tell you, as a business owner, I believe in the power of the arts. I truly believe that arts are great. And I think we've seen a testament to that in many of the things that we've heard thus far today. The arts are key as they contribute significantly to the quality of life in our communities, and they can truly help us bring about a positive social change. They help businesses enhance their creative thinking and creative skills of their workforces. They offer networking opportunities. The arts have brought the Cincinnati community together and help make it amazing. As a business leader who truly understands and values the arts, I continue to encourage, inspire, and support the arts in the workplace, in education, and in the community. See, because I have come to understand that the arts mean business. One of the things as a business professional I like to hang my hat on is best practices and new knowledge. And the arts are uniquely positioned for more deeply engaging the members of our community in Cincinnati. See, our community, for those of you that don't know, many of you do, has a breadth and depth of arts and cultural organizations and assets that are truly the envy of many other communities our size and larger. We have looked at these assets, and certainly as a business person I understand assets, but we wanted to make sure that this was a sustainable sector. Very important. You hear that word sustainable a lot these days. We wanted to leverage our assets to the benefits of the entire community. We wanted to be sure that we were well positioned enough that we could attract diverse talent to our workforces, whether that was an international worker or a young professional. What we did was, because conversations are very important, many of us know that, we allowed ourselves to conduct hundreds of interviews and surveys, and yes, Bob, surveys are okay. And we wanted to find out exactly why our community campaign was supported by our community, what it was about the arts that they liked and what it was about the arts that they disliked. And we published a report on our findings regarding how to really best communicate with the public in order to achieve what we refer to as a shared responsibility, for the arts and the culture. Because we don't do it by ourselves, we do it with and through others. That's the way it works. We looked at a national scan of the best practices, and we convened our community to have these conversations with people of different backgrounds and different perspectives. I think it's very important that we engage as many people as possible in those conversations, and we went out of our way to do just that. Ultimately, there were early conversations with the community, and that really brought about good dialogue, robust dialogue, action, and giving. I had the opportunity to run the campaign for ArtsWave in 2011, and we saw an increase of 6,700 donors and supporters that were all new. We had an increase in our leadership giving at the $1,500 plus level. We saw an increase in our Arts Sampler Weekends that are sponsored by Macy's. We went from 1 Arts Sampler Weekend to 5, and we had 15,000 people participate, and it really allowed us to show the depth and the breadth of our arts community in Cincinnati. So again, this was all about the broader section of the population. I'd like to just cue up my slides now. Unlike the folks before me, I really don't have any beautiful pictures, but I do have some good data, and there's power in data. In these surveys and these conversations, we came about to understand that there are truly benefits for individuals as well as the community, and that there are particularly compelling and unique benefits that pertain necessarily to the arts. And based on that research, we decided that there were 2 findings that we really wanted to key in on, and those are to the left. Those I have listed as goals. We wanted a more connected and engaged community. We wanted a thriving and vibrant economy, and an economy that really goes beyond the dollars and cents argument that we oftentimes hear. Well, what were the impacts? What are the results? That's important. We wanted people to come together that might not otherwise come together. You see, the arts improve the quality of life in the community. We wanted young people that were excited about learning. We heard some of that in Bill's presentation earlier. The arts improve academic performance of students. The arts organizations offer education initiatives that benefit the entire community. Neighborhoods and communities are lively and instill pride. I think we saw some of that earlier in some of those great pictures that were shared. Our region keeps workers and attracts new ones. We want to keep growing. People share responsibility for the arts and culture. That's the shared responsibility. We want others on board. So what is the ideal state of all of this? We want to know that there is public will for arts and culture, and that the arts are truly positioned and seen as necessary to the vitality and vibrancy of our region. very important. I'd like to just share with you some other information that we have put together. These are some key findings from Snapshot 2012. See if I can get this to go here. And let me just tell you how we came to these findings. We were always constantly in search of additional information that can really connect more of the dots. We took ArtsWave, who was the largest funder in our region. Many of you know we're a very large United Arts Fund, and that is as a result of our donors and our funds that we raise on a yearly basis. And we took our chamber, which is also one of the largest in the country. It's roughly about 5,000+ members. It's the 5th largest chamber in the country. And we put together a plan to gather more data. And this data came about as a result of the chamber, which is our Agenda 360, our action program that's housed at the chamber. And we wanted to find out more about arts and culture participation in our region. And we found some incredible things. We found out that arts-engaged adults in Greater Cincinnati are more active in civic life. Now, one of the unique things about the things I'm going to just mention here very quickly, and I'm not going to read all these, but a lot of these things are things we know. But what this allowed us to do was to attach a metric to what it is we know and have hard, solid data. More arts and culture connected, the more likely you are to vote, volunteer, and report a growing circle of friends. It broadens your worldview. Infrequent visitors to concert halls, theaters, and museums rate these experiences as important to their quality of life. Employers saw increased social ties, and community embedding could lead to the retention of top talent, very important for growing communities. Providing new experiences increased employees' intercultural dependency and a gateway to more inclusive workplaces, also very important. So you can see, and again, I won't read all of these, but you can see that the findings were very key. It helps us to continue to hang our hat on things that we know to be the case and to continue moving in the right direction in terms of our support of the arts in Cincinnati. Families making art and culture a priority report higher satisfaction with their community as a whole. That's very important, because what is a community if it's not a community of families? Families are very important. And these observations from Snapshot 2012 may prompt new ideas on how the arts and cultural organizations may build meaningful connections with audiences and provide extraordinary experiences for even more people throughout our region. You know, we're very excited about this information that we've been able to gather and put together, and it's really helping us to continue our path to greater support of the arts in Cincinnati, a more engaged community, and folks that really get the power in the arts. So with that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please welcome Danielle Brazelle.
Hi. I had a moment where I wasn't sure if I was going to walk in front or behind, and I started to tweak out on that. Hi. It's the little things that can spin me out. Hi, Pittsburgh. It's so great to be here. I'm Danielle Brazelle, and I get to run Arts for LA. Arts for Los Angeles is a regional arts and arts education advocacy organization in a little fishing village over near the coast of California, Los Angeles. Some of you may have heard of it. Our little fishing village is home to about 8 million people. There's about 88 cities, about 147 unincorporated areas, 81 school districts. And I learned this today. Charlie Jensen, my colleague, shared this, that it's the population the size of Georgia and the land mass of Connecticut. So it's kind of big and it's massive. And community means different things to different people. And I just have to say, an arts teacher saved my life as well. And I absolutely would not be here if Barbara Yannick didn't hand me the keys to the stage and say, here, why don't you go get me the slide projector? Because I had already dropped out of school. And it was the way that she brought me back in, and she created the safe place for me where I can find that opportunity to learn what my feelings were. Because it wasn't safe to have feelings where I came from. And I think, and it's just an assumption, but I'm pretty sure each and every one of you had someone that reached out to you, that connected you to the arts. And I hope you're able to either pass it on, which I think you're doing right now, in your work and the way in which you build communities. And I get to be Facebook friends with Barbara Yannick and let her know that I'm on the national stage. Oh my God. So it's kind of exciting. But this isn't about me. Arts for LA started over 15 years ago. But over the past 6 years, we've built a pretty strong, robust network. Because how do you create community in a region this big? And that was one of our big challenging questions. You can't do it alone. Community is not singular. So whatever this does for you and these images, which you can see, well, that's me right now. But as you see the images rolling, take what you want and leave the rest. 3 things for me when I think about building community. I think you've really got to be able to build trust. And when you build trust, it's not something that comes lightly. You got to take your time with it. And you got to be able to listen. You got to be able to listen to what's not being said. And you got to show up. You got to show up repeatedly. And once you build trust, you can start to begin to build some partnerships. You know, Arts for LA simply wouldn't exist without Americans for the Arts. We wouldn't exist without the Los Angeles County Arts Commission. We would not exist without a deeply committed board of directors and a community that was willing to say, yeah, actually, we need to have a regional advocacy organization that can really help support a complete education for everyone, not just those that can afford arts. An engaged society, right? I mean, that's what we do. You're absolutely right. 45,000 people in our network, and we know for a fact that 96% of those people vote on a regular basis. That's incredible when you think about it. We are highly engaged. And in Los Angeles, you know, we like to call ourselves the creative capital of the United States. We like it. It's a good little tagline. I like to use the data that says 1 in 8 jobs is directly related to the creative economy, but who has access to those jobs? And part of our job is to make sure that everyone gets to be a part of that creative economy, that it's just not selected. So the images that you see are really a manifestation of the 6 years of work that we've been doing. We focused on building an incredibly strong, solid framework centered around those 3 issues: arts education, cultural economy, and civic engagement. And we built the capacity of our network. We really built it out online. We call it a high-touch, high-tech strategy. We engage not just our local arts community, but we engage those outside of that community and bring them in. We just built a partnership with the Human Relations Commission in Los Angeles that's really looking at how to bring in arts and culture to address public safety. We have advocacy teams, which Abe Flores, our emerging arts leader, oh, how fantastic is that, works to build cohesive community work within small communities throughout Los Angeles, and I think we're up to 13 teams. And then I think there's just a little bit, this picture is perfect to end on, of creating a little bit of theater, right? I'm using my jazz hands. Because if you don't create the theater of the moment, if you don't use creativity to address the very thing that you care about, And if you don't act as if, people may not be inspired. And so I think you want to be in the solution. You got to identify the problem, but you got to be in the solution. And once folks start repeating your message, you know you're off to a good start. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you to all of you for your presentations. So you all understand presentations and how these conferences run. We are at, I believe, 5 minutes until the end of this session. So what I'm going to ask is your help, because you're all pros. Anyone that's sitting on a question, please proceed to the microphone. This is your chance to ask a question. But I also want to say that at the end of the presentation, I'm assuming that you all can stay around. I know Bill is going to be signing his book. So do I see any individuals, any brave individuals? You know, you're sitting on a question. Anyone up to a microphone? I think I see someone headed. I think she's going, and she is leaving. All right. But I loved your question. Thank you. I'm going to ask you just a quick question, and hopefully someone has come up. What is the key stumbling block that you see within our field? We are connected to communities. We do work in communities. We do very powerful work. But what is it, in your opinion, and short answer, unfortunately, that is our own major stumbling block as an arts community in moving forward and getting more and more empowered? I love the idea from the artists this morning that we switched the NEA with the Department of Defense. But what is that stumbling block that you have encountered within our field? So you all have lavalier mics on, so I'll turn it over. Yes?
You know, I think one of the things, and you said it, was trust. I think people have to trust others, trust themselves, but trust others to get this meaningful work done. We have to do it with and through others. We can't do it by ourselves. And we have to take others by the hand at times and take them to, whether it's a venue or a meeting, or engage them in a conversation, because conversations, in my mind, are living things. Things happen and don't happen as a result of conversation. So first of all, you've got to have a conversation, and we all know when we're in conversations with people that we may not trust or that may not trust us, you know, and what it's like to have a conversation that's fully engaging. When you trust and the others trust you, it's a different conversation. So I think trust is very important, a very important element.
I would also say empathy. I think we need to learn what the barriers are from those that are struggling with really tough decisions. You know, we have had a major economic crisis in this country. And for us to really understand what our public and appointed officials are dealing with and really come to the table with the solutions that will help them deal with it is important.
Thank you. Molly?
And I think we are in a perfect position to have some of the best ideas, because our world is a world of the imagination, and that there is no boundary. But as well as that, what we are hobbled with is when we don't have both the quantitative and qualitative information, it will fall on deaf ears, because people think very left and right brain. So I think if it's those two ideas working in concert together, and then things get done.
Thank you. Bill, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would add to that. I think our ability to demonstrate the value of what we do is the new frontier. Mm-hmm. That's where I think reaching across sector, across political divide, across economic strata, that I think is the new frontier for us. That's the big opportunity for us to now convert what we know into a more universal language that can broaden the constituency base. And I believe that that's possible to do.
Mm-hmm. Great. At this point, I know we're on a very tight schedule today, so I want to thank you all very much for attending and participating and listening to these great presentations. But I also want to take a moment to give a huge round of applause to our panelists, Danielle, Edgar, Molly, and Bill. Thank you. A couple of housekeeping notes. Bill will be signing books in center stage. The other panelists will be staying here to answer any questions you may have. And most importantly, anyone attending the art venture or going on that, quickly proceed to the east lobby of the convention center, ground level. You will be departing in 10 minutes sharp. So thank you all. Bill.